Hello, everyone. This is Alexandra Levine with Alexandra Levine Live. We are all in with Alexandra Levine Live. So right before President Trump's speech, we're going to be talking about some things that happened last week. And of course, the biggest thing was President Trump hosting President Zelensky in the Oval Office. Let's play the clip.
For 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
I'm sorry to say the clip is not working.
Sure.
But I can kind of tell you a little bit about what that exchange was. So J.D. Vance was basically saying to Zelensky,
Crimea.
he was saying, you know,
So
how
he
dare you
occupied it
come
on
here and disrespect the
2014.
Oval Office by
So
pushing your propaganda stuff.
During a lot of years, so I'm
and
not
then,
speaking about just Biden, but those times
Mr. Zelensky
was
said,
Obama,
well, what
then
diplomacy,
President Obama,
you know,
then
should I
President
have
Trump, then
between,
President
you know,
Biden,
Putin
now
and myself?
President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop
Zelensky
him.
said
But
to
during
J.D.
2014,
Vance,
nobody stopped
he
him.
said,
He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the content
then
was?
Zelensky said to J.D. Vance, he actually called them
2014.
the B-word.
Yeah. So
BITC.
I was not here.
We're going to remove that clip
right.
because,
Yes,
like I said,
but,
it is
during
not working at all.
2014 till
So I'm just
2020.
going to go into the next slide. I'm just going to focus straight on Zelensky. Yeah, the clip is not working. So what happened was, you know, Mr. Zelensky comes in and he, you know, just acts like he's a tough guy. You know, he acts like, you know, his crap doesn't stink. And J.D. Vance actually saw that. He saw him rolling his eyes while he was in the Oval Office, and he sees him crossing his arms. Very disrespectful. Also, the president commented before that he came and dressed a little bit better, but he didn't wear a suit into the Oval Office. And there was actually a Newsmax reporter, or sorry, not Newsmax, a Real America's Voice reporter that commented on Mr. Zelensky, why don't you wear a suit to the Oval Office? But what really started the tension was Zelensky said, you know, when you go to war, you know, you have a nice ocean, but when you go to war, you're going to feel it. And President Trump said, don't you dare tell us how we're going to feel. How dare you? How dare you tell us how we are going to feel? You don't know that. We're feeling pretty good. You're the one that's in trouble. You don't have the cards right now. We have the cards. You don't have the cards right now. And President Trump said, you're gambling with millions of people. You're gambling with World War III, quote unquote. And of course, Zelensky, he was pushing back. He said, you know, problems started with, you know, Putin even while you were the president of the United States. That is a lie, everybody. Under President Trump's leadership in 2017, we didn't have wars. Russia didn't go into Crimea because Putin knew better. But what did Putin do? Yes, he did break the ceasefire in 2021 when Joe Biden was in the White House because he knew that Joe Biden was a weak leader. He knew he had dementia and he knew that he could do it. And what does Zelensky have the audacity to do? Come to the Oval Office and demand more money and lie and say that he's been alone. President Trump said, how could you be alone? We gave you $350 billion. How could you be alone? And how dare you have the audacity to continue asking for more? Because that's basically what Zelensky was doing. And he wanted President Trump to diss Vladimir Putin, to attack him, to say he's a terrible person. President Trump's trying to bring the peace. He's the peacemaker and he's the deal maker. Remember, he wrote the book, The Art of the Deal and The Art of the Comeback. So we have the best deal maker with someone who's a puppet, by the way. He was put in there and installed by globalist, socialist, communist, Marxist elitists, like George Soros, for example. When George Soros said, I support Zelensky and I support this war, that's when I took 50 steps back. I was like, this is insane. I can't even think to support Zelensky when you have George Soros backing him. And everything that's happening is under George Soros's watch. So after that embarrassment that Zelensky did, and again, we have slides and we can show you the slides. the slides of the Ukrainian ambassador, she's putting her hands literally in her head because she's so embarrassed and so humiliated. The Ukrainian parliamentary, they're calling to impeach Zelensky over his disgusting display in the Oval Office. And President Trump threw him out, didn't give him lunch, threw him out and said, you come back when you are civilized and you come back when you want to negotiate. He said, I'm not going to deal with somebody who's ungrateful. And Vice President J.D. Vance said, have you said thank you once to us? Have you said thank you? And Zelensky said, yes, I said thank you today. He says, no, have you really said thank you? He never has said thank you. And it's evident. It's evident in his body language at that meeting. It's evident in the way that he handled himself. And I applaud President Trump for throwing him out. He was disgustful and disrespectful to the Oval Office. But Zelensky's not done. Oh, Zelensky is never done. Oh, no. What did Zelensky do afterwards? He took a flight to Britain, to the UK. We have that video and that clip to show as well, which we will once we get the technologically difficulties more cleaned up. We're having some technical difficulties tonight. So Zelensky didn't get what he wanted. So he ran to the UK. He had a meeting with the Prime Minister of the UK. And of course, he had a meeting with Prince Charles. And what does he get there instead? He gets $2.6 billion as a, quote, loan for military aid. A loan? So everything, the $350 billion that America has given Zelensky is, quote, a loan? We know as Americans we're never getting that money back. The UK is never getting their money back. So that's what Zelensky did. He didn't get what he wanted from President Trump, so he flew to Europe, flew to Macron, flew to the Wales, flew all over England, trying to get money from other people. And I always say there is a sucker born every day. And the UK Prime Minister is a sucker, a total sucker. $2.6 billion to that man? For more war, for more strife, for more killing? Remember, Vladimir Zelensky recruits American troops to fight in his country, and he doesn't care if we die in his war. That's the difference between him and Prime Minister Netanyahu. So when people want to put Ukraine and Russia with what's going on in the Middle East, it is day and night. And let's not forget, Israel is our biggest ally. We need to support them and we need to stand by them. But Vladimir Zelensky, he lies. He says that he is an ally of the United States. That is not true. He is not our ally. Not at all. And he wants to be a part of NATO. That is his mission. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said he will never be a part of NATO. Quote, unquote. So this is what we have here, guys. We have a bigot, a dictator, as President Trump calls Zelensky, who's going around asking people for money and then some. No remorse. But then on the other side, you have Vladimir Putin, who is actually willing to come to the table. And he said that he would commit to signing a ceasefire. That he is tired of the killing. He's tired of the fighting. And he knows under President Trump wants peace and he wants the war to end. But again, why is Zelensky doing this? I'll educate my audience. There's a difference between the two men. Mr. Zelensky is bought and paid for. Mr. Zelensky gets orders from George Soros. Vladimir Putin, he doesn't answer to anyone but himself and God. Mr. Putin is one of the wealthiest men in the world. Not the nation, not just in Russia, in the world. People don't know that. They think he's a poor man. And Putin is not stupid either. People say he's a great businessman. Look how he's been able to hold the ruble together. A lot of people said if, God forbid, Kamala Harris would have won, they would have moved to Russia. And there's a lot of Russian Jews that are still being very protected under Putin. Now, I'm not taking a side on who I like and who I love and who we should support and who we shouldn't, but the writing is on the wall. We voted for President Trump because we want America first, to put America's interests first, not the interests of a war between Ukraine and Russia. But if you're looking at this objectively and as an outsider, Zelensky lost. Putin won. Putin has the upper hand in this. But also the United States has an upper hand in this too. Because President Trump is not going to just hand off money to someone that is ungrateful. And what did he do today? Or I would say, what did he do a couple days ago? He decided not to give any more military aid to Ukraine. That's a biggie. That is a biggie. Because again, we've already given him $350 billion. Insane. We've had enough of our hard taxpayer dollars going to this war. President Trump has had enough of the American people suffering and not having a job. So, Mr. Zelensky, if you want to play ball, you need to stop coming here and begging us for money. You need to stop coming here and telling American troops that we need to fight in your war and die in your country. And your actions, sir, are speaking louder than words. The fact that you're running to Europe and asking for billions of dollars and kissing the butt of the king is insane. And President Trump is watching. He's watching. But what I really hate to see, is Americans putting on their Facebook profiles, "I stand with Ukraine," with a Ukrainian flag. If you stand with Ukraine, but you're in America saying this, why aren't you in Ukraine? Why don't you go to Ukraine? Zelensky challenged J.D. Vance to come to Ukraine. I challenge you to go to Ukraine. Go to Ukraine, fight in their war, stand with them. It's the same thing as standing with a Palestinian flag, as a lot of other people think. And look at the Democrats. They're all about Ukraine. They're all about Palestine. Zelensky did such a bad job that his best friend, Lindsey Graham, turned his back on him. But not the Democrats. Oh, no. And I'm saying all Democrats. The moderate Democrats, the liberal Democrats, the very, of course, hardcore socialist Democrats, like Senator Reverend Warnock. They're all in favor of Zelensky. But I encourage Americans not to put on their Facebook profile page, "I stand with Ukraine." Why not put an American flag and say, "I stand with America"? It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good at all. And actually, it hurts our troops. It hurts our military to see that. Our military prides themselves in knowing that we love them, that we want them safe, and that we say, "I stand with you." I also support law enforcement, firefighters. I go to every law enforcement officer and I say, "Thank you for your service." I go to every security guard here in America and I say, "Thank you for your service." That's what you all should do. Go to a police officer, a firefighter. Thank them for their service. Go to a military person and say, "I thank you for your service." Don't say, "I stand with Ukraine." What has Ukraine done for us? What has Zelensky done for us? Zelensky owns millions. He owns multiple properties all over this country. He owns a $35 million home in Vero Beach, Florida. A lot of people said, "Oh, that's not verified. I didn't see his name on the mortgage." Well, guess what? It's something called an alias, or they put in somebody else's name, but it's really Zelensky's home. Why doesn't Zelensky do the American people a favor, sell his $35 million home, sell all of his properties, and give the money back to we the people? I'm waiting for Mr. Zelensky to cut us a check for all the billions of dollars he stole from us. That's what really should happen here. We all know he's stolen from us. We can't continue giving him billions and billions of dollars when he doesn't deserve it. Putin hasn't asked us for billions of dollars. Have you seen Vladimir Putin come here and ask us for money? And Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, he has not come here asking us for money. That is not his style. So really think about it. Think about who you're supporting. Think about who we should support, what we should support. We cannot support this war in Ukraine. You cannot say, I stand with Ukraine. So if you are one of those people that has I stand with Ukraine on your Facebook profile, please take it off tonight. Take it off while President Trump is speaking. Take it off after he speaks. Because if President Trump saw that in his administration, they'd be disgusted. If Elon Musk saw that on Twitter, he'd be disgusted. Stand with America. Stand with we, the people. That's what you voted for. You voted for President Trump because you knew he was going to stand with the people. We already know he stood with the people in 2017. And he continues to stand with the people today. That's why he was not going to negotiate, or he wasn't, that's why he ended the negotiations with Zelensky. Because he knew it was bogus. He's not a stupid man either. So, Mr. Zelensky, again, when you get your act together and you wear a suit to the Oval Office, maybe then you can come back and real deals can be done. Turning to another topic before my guest comes on, is all of these elected officials that are going against DEI, which is the executive order that President Trump put into place that said no more DEI hires, and also a lot of elected officials that are combating President Trump on the illegal immigration. And the thing is again, President Trump and Border Czar Thomas Homan, they emphasized that any elected official who harvests illegals are going to go to jail. Because Thomas Homan and his team with ICE and DHS, with Secretary DHS Kristi Noem, they're going in there and they're getting the criminal illegals first out of our country. That's what Trump campaigned on. That's what we all voted for. And these liberal mayors and these liberal governors and these liberal county executives, they know that. But for them to continue combating Thomas Homan and DHS and ICE and President Trump and threatening to sue his administration is disgusting. I focus on the state of Maryland because we're going to have a guest from Maryland, but Maryland is one of those states that is combating President Trump and the DOJ and ICE and DHS with a DEI hire governor, a DEI hire mayor from Baltimore City, Brandon Scott, a DEI hire attorney general, Anthony Brown. These are all DEI hires. And then the latest news is former Baltimore County President Nick Mosby, another DEI hire. Governor Wes Moore just appointed him as the Maryland Lottery Commission man. That man is so corrupt, he should not even be touching a Maryland lottery. And we all know about his ex-wife, Marilyn Mosby, how she should have went to jail and all the corruption that she did. DEI hire. That's what Governor Wes Moore did. Nick Mosby is a DEI hire. Disgusting. If he gets through, God help the Maryland lottery. Again, Nick Mosby lost in the primary to Zeke Cohen. The people of Baltimore City had enough of him and his ex-wife. But why does Governor Wes Moore have to put a DEI hire in as the Maryland Lottery and Commissioner? It's disgusting. There was other more qualified people. Same thing with the State Board of Elections. Governor Wes Moore didn't want to put in a very skilled man who stakes his life on election integrity as the State Board of Elections in Baltimore County. But he put a DEI hire in there who doesn't even know half of what the other gentleman does. President Trump said no more DEI hires. But Governor Wes Moore and Brandon Scott want to call themselves DEI leaders. So again, and I've said this before on my show and I've said this on X, I pray that Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's my former Florida Attorney General, sues the state of Maryland, charges Governor Wes Moore, charges Attorney General Anthony Brown, and charges the Baltimore City Mayor Brandon Scott, and anyone else, even charges the mayor in Frederick County, anyone else that combats this. She should charge Johnny Oshefsky, who's the new congressman, former Baltimore County executive. He stood with Congresswoman Ilhan Omar There's a picture of him as they're combating Doge, combating illegal immigration. There's a lot of illegals that live in Maryland. I have a residency in Montgomery County. There are so many illegal Afghan and illegal Syrian refugees and illegal Lebanon refugees that live in Montgomery County. They're terrorists. There was a fake guy who was running as a Republican as the U.S. Senator in 2020 or 2022. He was fake. He claimed he was from Israel. It turned out he was involved with terrorists in Iran. His home was owned by a guy named Mashallah Ibrahimi. He was fake. I exposed him. Other people in Frederick County exposed him. But those are the type of people that live in Montgomery County. Fake people, fake aliases, terrorists. That's what we're dealing with. That's why I hope and pray that Pam Bondi comes and literally sues the state of Maryland. It needs to be done, and I'm not the only one that's saying that. Even Democrats want the state sued because the governor is literally doing so many heinous things, and the state of Maryland is completely broke, and people are leaving the state because they can't afford to live there anymore. The property taxes are astronomical, and then you have Governor Wes Moore expanding Section 8 housing and putting it in beautiful areas, homes that range from $500,000 to $1 million. When you put Section 8 in an area like that, it devalues the house, and then you get hilaria or God knows what in your neighborhood. And we'll talk about that with my guest as well. But these are real things that are happening, guys. And again, please report any illegals to DHS ICE Thomas Homan. You can tweet him at Thomas Homan. You can tweet at DHS at ICE. They'll get to the bottom of it. They'll get them. Tweet at Pam Bondi or at AG Pam Bondi on Twitter. Take pictures. Write in full-length forms of what you see and what you hear. And also take the clips of what these elected officials say and send it to ICE, DHS, Pam Bondi, and the Trump administration. These things need to happen. These people need to be arrested. Because then they're just going to keep getting reelected and reelected and reelected and reelected. People didn't understand or realize that when Johnny O became your congressman, that he didn't vote for the Lincoln-Riley Act. That means he supports illegal criminals. That's the congressman in Maryland in CD2. The Lincoln-Riley Act was so important to pass. But we have to remember the elected officials that voted against that act, because that means that they support illegal criminals. We can't have this, guys. Report them to ICE. Report them to DHS. Report them to at Pam Bondi. Don't be afraid. Well, coming up right after the break, we have a very special guest, actually a returning guest, elected official Tim Fazenbaker. And he will be here right after the break. Hi, I'm Alexandra Levine. I'm a professional opera singer, actress, TV, and radio personality. Since 2015, I've been a volunteer, a field director, and a campaign manager, learning the ins and outs of the political world. That's why I became a political consultant. My job is to lead you to victory with organization, structure, and the mindset of winning for your district or state. With my guidance and direction, I can keep you focused on the things that matter to the people and advise you on key issues that need to be addressed. If you're a serious candidate that is serious about winning, then book a consultation with me today. Go to levineconsulting.co. You'll be happy you did. Well, there he is, Tim Fazenbaker, elected official, and we have a little clip to kind of introduce him. Play the clip. We're going to play the clip to introduce him. Before he comes on. I was going to say the clip is maybe not working. Oh, sorry, we lost the clip. No, it's a great clip. It was a very great clip, actually. It was a meeting that Tim and I did at Fort Howard, and he's going to talk about it in a minute. So we're going to bring up right now elected official.
In Fort Howard,
oh, there it is.
The elected Republican to the Central Committee of the State. Also, as president of the state, for years we have been opposed to this. We have fought against bike paths that we knew were designed for a specific reason. We ask that you again reconsider this and protect that land for our veterans and give the community what we want. Thank you.
There we go. We got the clip. So you heard what Tim said. He was there as the elected representative of the district that was in Dundalk High School. It was a full house. And he talked about protecting the land because we have something going on in Fort Howard right now. And we're going to bring Tim Fazenbaker up right now so he can talk about it. Let's bring him up. And here he is. Sorry about the kinks.
All good.
To tell our audience, this is a new software we're using. We're not doing Streamer, we're doing Restream, so we're just trying to get used to it. So thanks everybody for bearing with us. Thank you, Tim, for bearing with us.
All right, with that clip, what was being shown was the will of the people is that we want to protect lands that we have outside of Baltimore for our veterans, and it's historic lands, and it's one of two properties that have veteran hospitals that are actually being pushed to go to private developers. One is in Baltimore and one is in Nancy Pelosi's district. We've tried for years to stop it, and we've slowed down the corruption from the government and some of the developers that only care about taking that land for profit. And we said, no, that's not what we want. And we've slowed them down, but we're at the point now where we're almost gone. And one of the things that we've been pushing here is let's bring in Donald Trump, President Donald Trump. Let's bring in Elon Musk, have them take that lands, make it part of Fort McHenry, which is historic, and give it back to the veterans. Make it a national park, do something, take it away from the corruption at the state level, which is very left-wing here in Maryland, and take it away from the people that don't care about the will of the people, and give it back to the veterans, give it back to the people, and keep that history alive. That's what we're fighting here in Maryland, but that's just a microcosm of what's been going on across the country, which we'll be talking about. But you have things like President Trump and Elon Musk with Doge showing all the corruption that's going on. And it trickles down to Maryland, it trickles down in just about every single state. And that's what we got to stop, and that's what we're going to stop.
Well, that is great that you said that. And for people that don't know about Fort Howard and what it was, can you tell my viewers a little bit about the history of Fort Howard and the VA hospital and what was there before?
Yeah, so Fort Howard is historic because of the Battle of 1812, when the English decided to come back and rehash the Revolutionary War. It's been around longer than that, but they still have the gates and the cells there that where people were. But it was historic because we actually slowed down the British here before they burned down the White House at that time. But we had slowed them down and potentially kept the English from recapturing America. So there are generations of families that have been here since the 1600s. I met someone actually today that she's 7th generation down here. There's still farmland. When you think about Baltimore, you don't really think about farmlands and let's just say rednecks and stuff like that. But Baltimore has that all around it. It's beautiful land right on the water. It's very conservative. And these are family generations that have been here since then. They're historic homes down there that have been around since the 1700s or 1800s. And it was designed as a veterans hospital and facility to treat veterans that needed care. And it has been dilapidated, probably on purpose, so that they could drive down that lot and that land, which is right on the Chesapeake Bay. Beautiful land, beautiful water, and they have destroyed it, but by polluting in that water, by not taking care of the land, and against the will of the people again, just coming in and saying, well, we don't really care that it was for veterans. We are going to do something different with it. We're going to stop that, and we're asking President Donald Trump, and Elon Musk, help us, because we're out of options here. As laymen, we need your federal help.
Yeah, Damon, keep that tweet up. So that was a very famous tweet that you wrote about Fort Howard, and you addressed it first to Elon Musk. You said, look at the VA hospital in Fort Howard, Maryland. Save the land by making it part of Fort McHenry. The land should be for our veterans, not politicians. Follow the money. You and @real Donald Trump are the only hope we have to stop the theft of veterans' resources. So that tweet was literally sent to @Elon Musk, @real Donald Trump. And you got a lot of viewers that actually saw that tweet. But I know for a fact that you have a lot of followers. Some of them have like 1 million followers or millions of followers that actually retweeted that. So even though it says 1.2 thousand views, it was actually more. It was actually 100,000 views or even more that people looked at that tweet. And I think that tweet really opened up the conversation. And you also retweeted out to Secretary of Defense. So that's going to Pete Hegseth. And as we know, Pete Hegseth, one of the reasons why he became the new Secretary of Defense is his love for the military and our veterans. And I know that also went to the Department of Veterans Affairs with Doug Collins as well, because I know from what we talked about, and then when I was at the meeting with the Dundalk Eagle, who did a beautiful report spread of you as well, is we need to give back to our veterans. We need to give back to the community. The fact that they want to put Section 8 housing next to a beautiful landmark and really devalue the landmark, but also the underlying meaning of this bill, and we'll get into it, is that it's not just for low-income families. They also want to put illegal aliens or illegal criminals, I hate to say it, into the Section 8 housing. And that's what they're not telling you. What say you about that?
So in Maryland, we've been fighting for years to get this kind of stuff to stop. And back during the Obama administration with Julian Castro, they ended up having an initiative that a lot of counties and states around this country use, which is any development over a certain amount of houses, regardless of what the property value would be, 10% or 15% of those properties will be subsidized homes. So Section 8 could be for different subsidies, but a lot of times that's a way for them to get around and force social exploratory, whatever they want to do, and getting people into certain places. Now, Maryland's also a sanctuary state, I believe, and they don't care. They're going to force everything against the will.
Baltimore is a sanctuary county, correct?
Baltimore is a sanctuary city, yes, and I think Baltimore is, and they will continue to force what they want, the bureaucracy, compared against what the people want. Thank God President Trump now has said, you know what, we'll take away the federal funding if you don't follow these executive orders. Now, it hurts a state like Maryland, and living in Maryland and knowing so many people here, it's going to hurt us. But this is what's going to happen. People will continue to leave this state, just like they did with California. People will continue to say, you know what, something's got to change in this state. It's been ran in the ground for so long. So now what we're going to do is we're going to finally elect people, starting at the local levels all the way up, to come in and actually do the will of the people, to work with this president, to make sure the administration understands, hey, we're trying to do the things that are now law. But these people like Governor Wes Moore and most of our Congress people in this state, they don't care. And they will punish us as individuals, as family generations in this state, because what they want, what the bureaucracy wants is more important than what the people want that they are supposed to represent. So they're going to continue to force things into these communities. We're going to continue to fight back. but we're limited in what we can do. And that's why we're asking for President Trump, Secretary Hegseth, everybody else that can step in to step in. And for those who don't know me, I did run for Congress. I have ties to the Trump administration. Part of his team helped me as well. So when we put out things on social media, it's one avenue to get out the message, but also we have the backdoor channels where we can get our message in. And in 2019, we did
also are close to the White House reporters as well, so you
Yeah.
have that channel as well.
And in 2019, we did push this message because we saw it coming. We knew what was happening. Unfortunately, nothing came of it. But right after that is when COVID hit. So in 2020, everything kind of changed and everything stalled out. So we're asking again if we can get the message out to everyone across this country that we need help to get the federal government involved. And if you have any similar type of instance in going on in your state or town, it's the same thing. Try everything you can, but bring in President Trump, bring in Elon, bring anyone in that can help, because this is the kind of stuff we're fighting. And we now have somebody in the White House that will actually listen to us and help us fight this corruption from these bureaucrats.
The bill that Tim and I are talking about is HB 538. That's the Housing Expansion and Affordability Act. It was signed April 25th, 2024, became effective January 1st of 2025. The bill is designed again to address the housing supply and affordability crisis sensitive to local zoning. But we also know that it's there to cater for illegal aliens as well, or illegal criminals. My question to you, Tim, is it's already been passed into law. How can we have the federal government or the federal level override this?
So the first thing that I say again is that we can bring in the federal government and classify Fort Howard to be part of Fort McHenry, therefore making it federal land, protecting it as a historic level. The next step is obviously if they do that or they don't, we need the federal government to understand what's going on in some of these levels and taking away the resources from our veterans and taking away historic lands. And at least that conversation begins. And many of the people that even live in the region don't even know what's going on. They just kind of see that there's changes happening. The streets are kind of being moved and stuff. They don't understand what's going on. So it's also important that we educate everyone. As we saw in 2016 and since then, people who haven't been involved in politics, and look, it's okay. They may be very astute to what's going on, but they have lives, and it's not their main focus. But those who aren't involved in politics as much as say you or I are, they need to know about these things so that they can become passionate about it, like they did in 2016 when we saw a groundswell of people who've never vote for President Trump at that time. Continue getting people like that involved so that they know what's going on, they can step up. And every tweet or post, as they're now called, every social media message, every neighbor you talk to, all of these will help get out that message. And hopefully, the one of the main things that politicians do care about is the amount of people that will vote for them, along with money and power. But if they realize that the groundswell is growing so much that they might lose their position, they might listen to us at that time.
So I'm going to shift a couple minutes. So I talked a little bit about the DEI hires that you have in Maryland. Again, you have a DEI hire governor, DEI hire attorney general, DEI hire Baltimore City mayor. And I know that you know the history of the Mosbys. What do you think about Governor Westmore appointing Nick Mosby as the Maryland lottery commissioner? This is insane. And you see Governor Westmore, he said, Donald Trump is about to find out being the president of the United States is a black job. Again, that's a DEI thing to say. Again, your governor continues to combat President Trump and his team and his administration every single day. What would you say is the solution to this?
They're using racist tactics, let's just say, whether they have racist beliefs or not. They're using racist tactics to further their mission in a state like Maryland. Now, Maryland has a large black population, and it's was fine for a long time until they really started to play this race game here. And what you see when you see a post or like that, where Westmore is assuming that the president is a black job, which nobody asked your opinion on that, and that's pretty racist. So when you come out with that, people start going, what the hell are you talking about? Okay, Then you start seeing his actions. A lot of the people that he appoints are very left wing. They tend to be self-identifying as black as well. So it's okay. Are you only hiring certain quotas now of people? And would somebody like myself not be qualified just because of my skin color? You know what? That's not cool. That's not America. America, and we're seeing it with President Trump. America says the best person gets the job. If there is any kind of discrimination, well, America takes care of that. But you know what's going on now? It seems like there's still discrimination with affirmative action type stuff, which is now DEI. And in a state like Maryland, it is heavily abused. And you're seeing Westmore's administration and all these hires, and a lot of them are extremely corrupt. Well, they're being put in position for, let's just say, for a race. You know, that's what needs to be clarified. Governor Westmore has to answer that question. I sent a message today to say, why is it that you are hiring people that have these certain qualities? Is it because you have that tweet that you put out that says it's a black job? Is that the way you view what the qualifications are for certain positions? Not going to fly with America.
Now we're going to shift because Damon put up one of our last slides, which is important. So right now you're dealing with a new councilmatic. Right now you have 7 Baltimore County councilmen. They passed the law that they're expanding the council from 7 to 9. This is the new map that Woodlawn Research put out. They are the task force. They're a very liberal task force. It's actually run by an anti-Semite who ran for the state senate in your district. I forgot the guy's name, but he's such an anti-Semite. Who put this whole thing together. And the map is so bizarre. It shows like a big chunk of 6, which I know is mostly Republican, going to that council person. And then you have like a little bit of 1, a little bit of 2. You got a bigger chunk at 8, and then a medium-sized chunk at 4, little size at, I think that's 5, and then like a little size at 7. And I understand that you live in Councilmatic 9. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, so that's all. Go ahead. Sorry.
What you're seeing here is a map of Baltimore County. Inside the middle is Baltimore City, which everybody knows is a cesspool of corruption and just everything that has been in the news over the past decade. But what you're seeing here is on the west side, on the left of your screen, is a highly black population, a lot of illegals as well. And what the focus of this was, they wanted to make sure that they had multiple majority black populations that would end up having what they considered their proper representation. Whether that's right or wrong, it kind of fits into the same narrative that Westmore has put out, which is race-based policies. They have gerrymandered this now, and this is probably what's going to happen. This map that you see, they've gerrymandered it so that what their will is will happen. You do have a couple of conservative areas, like you see that massive area in 6, which is generally horse country, which a lot of people don't know that about Maryland. We are a very high, like Kentucky Derby Preakness, thoroughbred horse breeding land here. But when you get closer to the city, this is where you get more of an urban feel or metropolitan feel. On the right-hand side in 9, happens to be where I live. It's also where the Key Bridge used to be located. And if you remember last year with the Key Bridge collapsing, a lot of things have changed here, and a lot of people now have to go through the city for everything instead of taking that bridge. The districts are being gerrymandered to make sure that the left in this state continues their race-based initiatives versus the will of the people. And this is the kind of stuff that we want stopped. We just want to live and get along with everybody else and not continue with this DEI race-based initiative that Westmore and many on the left have been perpetuating.
Now, I have a question for you. Based on this map, which numbers, I should say, which district would be the Republican ones and which one would be the Democrat ones?
Well, the Republicans would still be in the minority with this. You basically would have maybe 3 positions here that would go Republican. So 9, 8, and 6, I believe. The rest are either leaning Democrat or heavily Democrat. And it's just another way that the government here is expanding their control by having even more Democrats in position. And the one other thing that I love to throw out on this, when they put this proposal together and we had a vote on it in this last election, what they didn't say, but some of us knew internally, was they also gave themselves a 40-some% pay raise and lots of other good that went along with this. So when you read it, you're like, okay, better representation, going from 7 districts to 9. It's understandable, but they don't tell you these little things that they put in. This is how a lot of these politicians get rich, as we've been seeing when they make 180 grand, which is a lot of money, but they end up having $300 million in the bank. Nancy Pelosi, there are ways that these people that are in power continue to expand upon their wealth based upon our taxes that we see squandered away as well. And who's left footing the bill? You, me, and everybody watching.
Well, let me ask you, because I've been hearing, rumors, whatever, that the majority of the incumbents are not running again. The only one that would be running again is Mike Gartell, because he's the newbie. What say you about that? Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, we're waiting for some clarification. There's a lot of corruption that has gone on, that has made its way to the federal level from people that started here locally, and they seem to be running scared for something going on here. So they're leaving. They also see that the districts have been changed and they lost either their power bases or maybe they were promised something else. So the government will be turning over again, probably 90% of it here. It'll probably continue to be very left leaning, but there are some bright spots in my district and in some others. We are fighting back and we're saying, you know what? We're pretty smart and we're pretty cunning. We're Americans, so we know that we're going to continue to fight. We may lose and we may slow it down, but we're going to find a way. And this is the best opportunity, having President Trump in there now, to actually get involved and help with a district like mine, and in a state like Maryland, which you think is just so blue, yet it's so red outside of Baltimore in that DC area. And one thing that really makes me happy in a weird way is that with what's going on with Doge in the DC area is affecting that DC metro area, which is Maryland, where all these federal jobs are being, let's just say, they're cut. Now, I don't want to see anybody out of work, but Maryland has been so reliant on every other state funding this stuff that such a large population of this state relies on federal government. What that means for Maryland, a lot of these people are going to leave and go back to the states they came from. So if you're in Florida, sorry that you're going to be getting some of these people back, but there are some good ones in there. But it's going to help a state like Maryland now focus on the private sector to bring in real careers and to make the state more balanced like it was when I was young. The state used to be 50-50. Last time for a Republican, 1984, I was just a little kid. Ronald Reagan won this state.
You weren't born then.
Going left and left and left ever since, and the government positions have been going up and up and up. There's the same thing with Virginia as well. So, I feel for people that have lost their jobs or losing their.
Make a point on that. The people that have lost their jobs, it's really the people that are remote working, that don't want to go back into the office, and people that have been lackadaisical. And a lot of the people that have been fired are DEI hires. So for people that are like freaking out about their job, if you are a good Samaritan, if you go to work, if you do the job, if you do support President Trump, and if you hadn't attacked him on social media, you are more likely to keep your job. So I just want to say that to some of friends and colleagues of mine that are very concerned about losing their job. They're not going to get rid of people so fast if they have showed merit. And President Trump hires people based on merit. They are firing people based on, looking at their portfolio, based on the fact that they haven't done the work, and the fact that they are stubborn and they don't want to go back into the workforce, that they just want to work remotely.
Yeah, and I will say that, I've heard a lot of the bogus stories in the media that says, people are resenting their vote for Trump because of this, losing their job. I will say there is one true story that I do know of, and it's a supporter of mine, and she had reached out to me, and she said, for Trump to be probably losing my job, and understands that it has to happen. That's the first question I asked. It's like, well, what do you think? How would you handle this? And she believes that she does a meaningful job. And I said, I believe you probably do. And if it happens, we'll find something for you. We'll work with you, because as a community, that's what we want to do. We want to help each other. I'm not going to be like what President Biden said at the time. Well, go learn how to code, or, what Obama was saying, basically, like, we don't really care. We want to help those people that do want to help themselves and the community. But at the same time, those who are freeloading off of us, we don't care. Go to Ukraine and work with Zelensky, because he's been stealing a ton of our money as it is. But do not abuse us. And if you need help, we will help. That's the big difference. People did vote for this. Some people will get caught up in it, but we will find ways to help those people as well.
I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. And I know that you have some events coming up. Please tell my viewers your social media as well.
I believe we have a new park that's going to be open on the 10th or 9th on Wednesday. I will be there.
I think it's the 19th, March 19th.
Maybe. Yeah. It would be on my website. And I believe I'm going to a kickoff campaign rally for Kimberly Stansberry, who's going to be running for Baltimore County Executive. That is on the 21st, I believe, at a place called...
Emphasize that you are going as yourself and not as a representative of your elected office. You are going there as yourself.
That is correct. I'm going as myself. And my thing is to support the best people in these communities that actually do care and do listen. So Kimberly has been a great person out of Towson, Maryland, and I will continue to make sure that her message is out there, that people understand as well. Other events will be going on. I'll be updating things soon, but at the moment, those are what is going on at the moment.
And please tell people again how we can follow you and your website.
Yeah, so timfazenbaker.com. It's a long name, but Fazenbaker. If you Google me, you'll come up. Matter of fact, someone told me today to check out Reddit, and I Googled my name in Reddit, and I was like, oh, yeah, look at all this stuff. I was like, hey, but if you Google my name, you'll find all my sites as well. And my mission has always been to put the communities first. And when President Trump came along and he started talking about America first, it's the same philosophy. And I challenge people to think about this. It's, you have the right to do whatever you want with your life, right? And most people believe that. And then you have the responsibility to make sure you don't take away that right from somebody else. So if you believe that, you know what, you fit into this MAGA movement in a sense. There are some variations on it, but you know what? Generally, if you believe in freedom, that's what this is. And that's what I'm pushing. And that's what I'm trying to work with other people out there to do. It's to understand that we are free. We're not black and white. We're Americans, and it's important to understand that, especially in a place like Baltimore, it's black, white, a lot of Jewish population, and all kinds of cultures because of being close to DC. I grew up with all these cultures. The one thing that brings us all together is that we are Americans. And if you can just understand that, you can join this movement, regardless of the party you're in, join this movement and make this movement based upon those principles and shape it to the way that you want. So if you want to leave, say your Democrat Party that's been taking you for granted forever, you can come join us and help shape this party and this movement to fit your community as well. That's what it's all about. And you'll see me out there continuing to push for our first responders, our police families as well, and our military members, and pushing just for the general people to live free and to continue to be Americans.
Well, let me ask you a question, Tim, because as an elected official for the Baltimore County Republican Central Committee, your job is to recruit candidates and recruit proper candidates. And I would think that, your committee would want to back and support candidates that support President Trump's agenda, that support America first. Now, going back into your elected official mode and in that hat, what are you doing right now to recruit, candidates that represent the America First agenda and the MAGA movement?
I have people that message me all the time, that follow my social media, that see the things. They see me on, shows like this, and they say, hey, I've always thought about getting involved, or I don't know anything, but, I'd like to be involved. And I tell them, you know what, first thing you can do is just help spread the message. But if you want to get involved, you can run for a school board position. We can help you with that. You can, begin to speak with other people that have some influence that can guide you in the right direction. And that's kind of what I do. It's, hey, what do you believe? Okay, we're on the same page for the most part. Let me get you in a position that, will help you. And it might not be you actually run for office. It might be in a supporting role. And that is okay, because we need more supporters than we do the chiefs, because we don't want to be top heavy and have all these people abusing their power. So when I come across anybody who's interested, even if they're not like-minded in their political belief, I do tell them where I think they can go, and they can best benefit themselves along with the people that they would be representing. And it's extremely important to be involved. And again, like I said, I know it's hard for everyday people, that you have children and you got to work and your groceries and all this other stuff. But at the same time, you could just be that person that says, I'm going to be involved because I'm going to keep up and know what's going on, and I'm going to tell my neighbors. I'm going to take care of the people on my block. And that way, that message still gets out, and people are more educated, and they get to vote properly instead of just voting for a name or a D or an R or something along those lines.
So last
I
question, and this
want
is
them
the
my
everybody
way.
asked. I'm sorry, say it again.
Want them to vote more my way, but
That's true. That's true.
they
And I just want to say for the record that Tim is notorious for getting Democrats actually to cross the aisle and either switch parties to Republican or vote Republican in the general. And that's one thing that people are lacking. For some reason, some Republicans, they are afraid to cross the aisle. They're afraid to talk to Democrats. They're afraid to talk to independents, but you're not afraid to talk to anybody. And, you and I, we have a lot of friends that are moderate Democrats, more so than, the rhinos. The rhinos are actually the detriment to our nation. The rhinos are actually a detriment to the Republican Party. You see a lot of moderate Democrats that actually support President Trump's agenda. You see a lot more moderate Democrats that do vote for Trump in the general. They're willing to actually flip parties to independent, but what they do is they still like to vote in the Democratic primary because they always vote against the incumbent. And then when they go to the general, then they vote for President Trump in the general, or a hardcore Republican in the general. So it's interesting dynamic there. And I know you personally, you live in a very Republican district, Dundalk, Essex, Edgemere. But it's funny, the Democrats in your district, they end up voting Republican in the general. That's why you still have Republican delegates. You have a Republican state senator. You have a Republican councilman. Hopefully you'll have another Republican councilman. We won't say his name. But, there's always hints. And final question that everybody wants to know, Tim, because you did put this on Facebook and X, are you running for governor, councilman, state delegate, or Congress? One of the four. And you can decline all of them.
I'm exploring options every day. I'm continuing to see what would best fit the people of my community and the state and the area. I'll announce that later. If more than likely, let's put it like this: I'll announce it when the time comes. But I do want to
on when the time comes. You are more than welcome to come on my show anytime. Doors always open.
I do want to say I did post something a few hours ago on social media, on Facebook. You can find it, Tim Fazenbaker, and it talks about it was a black preacher who says in his sermon or whatever he's saying, he's like, "Are we the dumbest people ever because we're only black if we vote for Democrats?" And it reminded me of a story, which I'll talk in just a second if we have the time, which is
we have 1 minute for the president.
The guy says basically, you're being taken for granted. So don't just be Democrats. Don't just be Republicans. Make them fight for your vote. I did an event in the inner city, and might have been the only white guy in there. And they were talking about why they always vote Democrat. And they thought, well, Republicans are racist. But then they stood up and they started talking and they said, well, we believe in these conservative beliefs, but we always vote Democrat, and they don't do crap for us. So I said, instead of just walking away from your party, join us and take it over. And that's when their eyes opened. And that's what you can do in your communities, is just help people understand they have a voice here in this party. They can come here and shape the party the way they want, with conservative values, and make everything better.
And I just wanted to say that you coined the term American Kids First. You also coined the term Make It Your Republican Party, which I think is amazing, because no one ever thinks of these concepts. And, you told me the story of like there was two lesbians and they were Democrat, but and they said to you, I don't like anything you stand for, but I like that you stand with my kids and that you put kids first. I'm going to vote for you anyway. And that, I mean, that resonated to me. That resonates with so many people. Again, just that little messaging here and there can really just change the mind of a voter that's either a hardcore leftist. So
Right.
again, that proves that you are so good at just talking to the opposition, talking to Democrats, talking to independents. Doesn't matter if they're moderate, hardcore. You are notorious for getting those people to cross the aisle. You're notorious for getting Jewish people to cross the aisle and to vote Republican and switch parties also in the primary. And I think that's what the focus needs to be, especially in Maryland and a very liberal state and liberal districts, is that you have to go in and you have to be comfortable talking to the opposition, because we have this 2-year window of time. We can get a lot of Democrats to switch parties. Or if our person, let's say Kim Stansbury, if she wins the primary, we can get those Democrats to vote for her in the general, or the independents to vote for her in the general. That's what really should be the focus right now, especially in liberal states and liberal districts. Let's say
I'll end it with this. George Washington warned us that the detriment to our country would be political factions. It's not good to be loyal to your party. It's good to be loyal to your country, because if you don't support the country over the party, the country will fall. That's why we need to be Americans first, regardless of beliefs or anything else. That brings us together. We can, as a family, iron out those little differences as well, but generally we believe in freedom, and that is what it means to be American, and that's what we'll continue to keep fighting for.
Well, thank you so much, Tim, for coming on. This has been a great 40 minutes with you. Oh my God, please come back again. And again, please follow Tim. Go to his website, tim@timfazenbaker.com, at America1TimFaze on X, at Tim Fazenbaker on Facebook, at Tim Fazenbaker on Instagram, and if you are on Truth Social, at Tim Fazenbaker, FAZENBAKER, or you can refer to him as Tim Faze. Thanks so much. And we will be right back. We're going to be continuing on live with the president. It's going to be his presidential speech. It's not a State of the Union address, but it is his 1-month agenda of what he's done for the entire month. And it's going to be great to kind of see and hear his accomplishments. And I'm really excited to see the guests that he's bringing in, the visitors. I know that they said there's going to be some hecklers there. The Democrats are bringing some hecklers, some noisemakers. It's insane what they want to do to hurt the man. But nobody, in my opinion, has accomplished so much in a month than President Trump. He's accomplished more this time around than when he was the president in 2017. And I'm glad that he's doing this address. And he's going to clarify some things for people. He's going to, of course, talk about his meeting with Zelensky and many others. And of course, he's just going to lay out all of his accomplishments and the massive amounts of executive orders that he's already signed to better our country. So we're really excited about that. And we will be live streaming that throughout the entire hour and a half. We're actually going to be partnering with my friend from Newsmax, Mr. Mark Carter. So we'll be watching it live on Newsmax with Rob Schmidt and my friend Mark Carter, and it'll be really nice. And we are looking forward to watching that. And I think we're waiting to oh, there we go. I think we're going to phase you out, Mr. Faze, and then put it on. There we go. Awesome. Do we have volume, Damon?
Of the president, who will be appointed out tonight. This is a practice that started. You see Matt Walsh. I mean, they've got folks all over the place who
from media.
For the media and the like. And this started during the Reagan administration after the Air Florida crash, and someone jumped into the water. Lenny Skutnik jumped in the water.
The first lady looks great.
And saved a person from drowning. And Ronald Reagan brought him
is the cabinet.
Brought him to the gallery, and so that has become a tradition. So all the guests now are called Lenny Skutniks.
Yeah, they are. And we'll talk about some of those because they're important figures. But Mercy, this cabinet so far has been a lot of stars. I mean, you see Marco Rubio, the Senate knows him well. Obviously, he was passed 99-0, as they're called. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary. They've been traveling around the world, whether it's trying to get this Ukrainian minerals deal, Rubio going to Panama and pushing back on China. He's been pretty strong early on.
Well, I got to tell you, Secretary Marco Rubio, I think you've seen him also take a very prominent role in the media. One of the interesting parts of this cabinet is that they truly are skilled communicators that who know how to deliver President Trump's message. And I think that's something that we have seen overall. This has been a cabinet that, because of the Senate and the Republicans in charge and Majority Leader John Thune, they have been able to successfully push these cabinet members through, getting them confirmed, and then it's been unstoppable from the Pete Hegseth going over to
Pete
Europe.
Hegseth got in by 1 vote. Very interesting to see him.
Something we should notice here is it's very unusual. You see Dick Durbin there, who's sitting down.
He's not
Democrats
even acknowledging.
are not standing.
You didn't see Adam Schiff shake Pete Hegseth's.
Boy, that is very disrespectful.
The Republicans.
That's disgusting. This is why Adam Schiff
side. The Democrats have
no.
not stood up.
Doesn't even acknowledge the new
See
Secretary
Marcy
of Defense,
Kaptur,
Pete
who,
Hegseth.
by the way, won
That
her
is
election in
disgusting.
Toledo by like 20
He was
votes.
a president
on the
confirmed by the
Democratic
Senate.
side.
He is the
She's there
Secretary
in the
of
light blue,
Defense.
and she's
This is
there on
why
the Democratic side. But after
Kash
her,
Patel is in there to
everyone
get
is
rid of
sitting,
Schiff
no
and
one
Schiff.
shaking hands of
It
the
is
cabinet.
disgusting. It is so disgusting that you don't even acknowledge your Secretary of Defense. That was Dick Durbin and Adam Shifty Schiff. Adam Shifty Schiff needs to go.
ICE agents. We have Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins.
We're going to shift the screen soon when President Trump comes on, so that President Trump is big. There we go.
Secretary of Education was just confirmed, I believe, yesterday.
Secretary of Education
Howard
Linda McMahon.
has taken a very
Mr.
active
Ludnick,
role in these
Kristi
negotiations.
Noem is there,
He's the
and we're
Commerce
still
On
waiting
tariffs,
for
yeah.
confirmation.
On the
Still waiting.
Daniel, he made news
Mike
tonight.
Huckabee
Howard
hasn't
Lutnick,
even
the
had
Commerce
his
Secretary,
hearing
saying
yet. He's supposed to see the
that we
new
may
U.S.
meet Mexico
Israeli
and
ambassador.
Canada in the middle on these tariffs, would suggest
And we
this
are live
administration
streaming
sees
now.
the
News
markets
backs up my
reacting
friend
in a
Henry
negative
Evans
way
multiple
and
times.
may want a way
Mike
out, may want
Carter.
to compromise.
We're live
Especially
streaming
since
live.
Trump, during his first term,
Newsmax
every time
tonight.
the stock market
The
hit
live
a new
stream.
high, he would be bragging about that. And so, of
Thank
course,
you guys
he's not
for
gonna be,
continuing with us.
talking
This is
about it when,
Alexandra
it
Levine live.
takes a
We
big
are
dip.
all in
I also saw
Alexandra
Robert F.
Levine.
Kennedy Jr. there.
Getting ready to
Imagine
hear
a lot of
President
Democrats
Trump
were shaking
make
his
his
hand,
first
even though-
address
that's an
to
interesting
the
point,
nation.
Senator
There's Robert
Santorum,
F. Kennedy
because
Jr. He's the new HHS
Robert F.
secretary.
Kennedy Jr.
I told
is
you I lost
someone
20
who,
pounds
until
on
a
his
few months
diet.
ago,
It's
was a
amazing. And
Democrat,
then, of
then
course,
became an
behind the
independent
Speaker
president.
Johnson, the Speaker of the House, there's our beautiful First Lady, our First Lady, Melania Trump, gorgeous.
No,
Love what she's wearing. There's our new VP, J.D. Vance, standing right next to the Speaker Mike Johnson. That's how it should be. That's what we voted for. Yep, there's his wife, Usha. That's J.D. Vance's wife, Usha. She looks great with her hair pulled back. Loving the suit. I bet these are Valentino's designers, Carolina Herrera, Gucci. I just want to tell my audience I only wear designers that Melania Trump wears. So you'll see me wear Swarovski, Carolina Herrera, Gucci, Fendi, Salvatore Ferragamo. Those are designers that the First Lady wears. She wears Michael Kors, Ralph Lauren, Dolce & Gabbana. These are designers that I wear. Hermes. These are designers that I wear. I only wear designers that the First Lady wears because the style is just amazing. It's so nice that we have style back in the White House. We have beauty back in the White House. I'm so happy for this.
What you would consider a very vocal vice president, very different than I would say Mike Pence's style.
Yeah, it's not even
You have to
close.
wonder what Pence will think of this speech tonight.
Yeah, compared to what he saw previously.
Mercedes, you make a really good point. I mean, I don't think, no offense to the president, I don't think 8 years ago Donald Trump was comfortable enough to have his vice president out there sort of taking the spotlight.
Yeah,
but
it's a different president.
It's a different president
in the second term. But
he's
real
very
quick,
much more comfortable.
And he's also he's a successor, potential successor to Trump.
Exactly.
So we just got excerpts from the White House, among other things, what they want us to hear to preview this speech. To give you an idea of the theme, the president will say 6 weeks ago, I stood under the dome of the Capitol, talked about the golden age of America. He will say, quote, we are just getting started. I return to this chamber tonight to report America's momentum is back, our spirit is back, our pride is back, our confidence is back, and that the American dream, Mercy, is unstoppable. So you can see the optimistic tone he obviously wants to take.
He does start with the economy. Among my very highest priorities is to rescue our economy and get dramatic and immediate relief to working families. This goes back to the fact of pushing the tax credits, pushing the child tax credits as well, and no tax on tips. There you see Byron Donalds, the congressman from Florida, who has been endorsed by President Trump to run for the governorship in Florida. He was there with Linda McMahon as well.
He will also say about the conflict in Ukraine, I'm working tirelessly to end that savage conflict. Millions of Ukrainians and Russians have been needlessly killed are wounded in this horrific and brutal conflict. The U.S. has set hundreds of billions of dollars to support Ukraine's defense. Meanwhile, Europe has sadly spent more money buying Russian oil and gas than they have spent on defending Ukraine by far. And Biden has authorized more money in this fight than Europe ever spent. Senator, there'll be a question as to whether he may tease the possibility of a peace deal coming back, because what we saw in the last 24 hours, pretty dramatic after that Oval Office confrontation last Friday. Last 24 hours, President Trump has cut off, or at least paused, U.S. military aid to Ukraine. And in reaction, President Zelensky today said, look, I want to sit down again. Let's come together. He seems to want to get a deal.
But this is typical. This is how Trump operates. He goes way out on a limb, like, you know, throwing Zelensky out of the White House,
yes,
all to get him to come to the middle and do something reasonable. Tariffs, we were talking about that earlier. 25% tariff on Mexico and Canada. I don't think he really ever intends to put a 25% tariff on those things.
We might only have a few days of that.
But we only have a few days of that. Why? He does something that seems to be radical and irrational, and yet he gets the other side to come to the table and find a middle ground. And so this is a tactic that Trump has used. He used it in his first term, and to great success.
You can see the cabinet kibitzing there. And in terms of that success, Daniel, let's not forget that in the last 24 hours as well, we've seen Honda announce that because of the tariffs against Mexico by President Trump, they don't want to build the Honda Civic in Mexico. They're moving those jobs, that production line, to Indiana. That means more American investment.
And we had the Taiwan semiconductor company have that announcement.
$100 billion.
And especially, I think people in Taiwan are going to be looking at this speech and say, hey, if China invades us in the next few years, can we count on the U.S. to have our back, or are we going to be left out in the cold like some Ukrainians feel today?
Well, I think one of the interesting lines that he's going to bring up, President Trump, is saying, I will also take the historic action to dramatically expand production of critical minerals and rare earth here in the USA.
Yeah. Well, I've been hearing from people inside the Trump White House that what they're exploring is that we might not need to go to Ukraine to get these rare earth minerals. We have some of these in America.
Nevada is a huge state.
But environmental regulations and left-wing policies, Senator,
and the fact that they're on federal
have
land
prevented us from getting in there.
Well, no, it's been prior administrations, because these minerals are on federal lands, and they have taken them off limits for any kind of mining operation. The president can go through the process of trying to change that.
He's also going to be addressing the issue of law and order, what's happening in the cities and towns. And this is, I think, going to be reflected again with the First Lady and the fact that the president, they're able to invite 24 guests to sit in the First Lady's box. The Speaker of the House also invites 24 people to sit in the Speaker's box, and then each other member of Congress may invite up to one guest. And this was a tradition of inviting guests to the State of the Union, or in this case, the address to the joint session of Congress, which began under President Reagan. Again, you mentioned this in 1982.
Well, and to that point, I think an important person, people will be there, will be the Comparator family, because Corey Comparator, the firefighter, was killed. His widow and children will be here.
President of the United States.
That is the House Sergeant of Arms who makes that announcement. And
here he is.
Woo! That's the man, everybody. That's the man. That's what we voted for, our dream. He looks great. Love the purple tie. I will cut out in a minute when the president begins to speak. It's so beautiful to see him. Remember, we saw this in 2017, we saw this in 2018, 2019,
Members on that
and
side.
20.
Senator Santorum's point a moment ago, boy, I've covered a lot of these Democrat and Republican presidents.
This is quite
and you've seen the opposite party usually shakes your hand.
they shake your hand, and they fight for those seats. I mean, those seats are not.
Oh, there's no sound.
That woman
I don't hear any sound. There we go.
I think one of the congresswomen basically holding a sign saying this is not normal. You saw on the other side one of the congressmen take that sign
A
away
congresswoman
from her.
saying this is
could
not
be
normal.
the beginning
That's
of,
disgusting. Get these
somewhat
people
of the
out of
protests
office.
coming from
When
the
you have an
left.
elected
But I
official
gotta
that's
tell you,
saying
what
this
a
is not
warm
normal,
reception. You could tell
get him out.
on the Republican side there is pure excitement. And this is something that I've seen with
And there is with
Republicans
Nancy Mace
love
embracing her.
President
Yeah,
Trump. The
he
Democrats need to get on
literally
board. Any
he's
Democrat that's
taking
not on
it
board
all
President Trump
in.
needs to be
I
voted
witnessed
out
this
or
at CPAC
impeached.
during his speech. He's
Well,
really
again,
just
he's a
taking in the moment
but
and
removed from
talking
office
to these
permanently.
members.
And he's surrounded by Steve
Let's be
Scalise,
honest.
of course, and other House and Senate
John
leaders.
Barrasso
House
behind.
Sponsor.
Yeah, John Barrasso from the
Because
You
Senate.
have to
I
wonder
remember.
when he was in all of those New York court hearings, thinking, hey,
That's
I could be
enough.
giving
We
a
need
speech in a year or
anti-Semites,
two
these
a
Democrats
packed
just office.
Congress. That
Mr.
is,
McConnell leaving is not enough.
you don't really
We
see
need to
that
get
very
Bernie
often.
Will I be
out of
giving a
there.
speech to a
And
joint
Mark
session?
and Chuck Schumer
Well,
standing there in the aisle.
everybody's
Neither of them
there.
embracing or talking to
Yeah,
Anybody
there's Ed
who's
Markey
against
from
the president
Massachusetts,
and his
not shaking
agenda
his hand,
and
not
tries to
reaching
undermine
out.
him needs to go.
There would be ads cut by
Enough
Democratic
is enough.
primary opponents
He
if
won.
you saw them
Deal
shoot
with it.
Donald Trump's
You don't like
Yeah,
it?
but this used to be something
out of
where
office.
you could reach out and people
Don't let him
from both
Alexis
parties
Somalia.
would
No
talk to
more
one another. But
wars.
look at Adam Schiff right there. He used to be a
Find
House
people
member,
for
now a
place to
senator,
support President
with basically
Trump.
had his back turned to the President of the United States, and they're basically just conducting conversations
They
Mercy,
are.
Anybody that has
amongst
back
themselves
to the
and not
United
even
States is
turning to the
disgusting.
No, they're
President.
deliberately
Again, we are
ignoring the
watching
president.
in real time
That's not-
President Trump getting ready
not
to
gonna play
address
well
the
in the
nation
middle of
and the world.
No, I mean,
Somebody
this
the
is-
world
this
is
is
watching
a-
this,
this is
everybody.
not a
Opening
partisan
our live
vote.
There's a
streaming
retired
over
justice, as you
entire
mentioned,
speech
Justice
With the House
Kennedy.
and
from
Senate,
beginning
that's
to
Justice
end.
Kennedy, yeah.
President Trump just
This
entered
is
the
a moment
chamber.
where the
They
country comes
announced
together
president of the
and
United
listens to the
States.
president. And
Remember, he's
you show
president
a modicum
45
of respect, not for him, but for the office. That's
Very
always
historic.
been the case.
He will be
And it's
showing
not a-
everybody
You have to
and
wonder what Justice
telling
Kennedy was
everybody
telling
what
Trump
has
in
gone
that
on
long
in his
moment.
first month of
Yeah, well,
office.
now he's embracing
Arrested
military leaders.
Nobody knows any of these military folks because all the ones that we knew were fired.
He has reshuffled half the military leadership.
So these are all new folks.
This is not a State of the Union
We're going
address.
to need a
just
seating
to
chart to
educate
figure
my
that out.
This is
We do
not a
know that
State
Defense
of the
Secretary
Union.
Pete Hegseth, this was
This is a
noted before,
presidential
only got in
address.
by one vote, is already reshaping the military. There is Marjorie Taylor Greene, of course, wearing the Trump was
And I'll
right about everything.
myself throughout the entire speech.
Now you hear a chance of USA,
You guys
obviously.
can listen in on
And you
President
can see
Trump
the Speaker of the House and the Vice
as
President
he's
excited to see
taking
the President. Let's
the
listen.
pulpit. Lima.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a great honor. Thank you very much. Speaker Johnson, Vice President Vance, the First Lady of the United States. Members of the United States Congress, thank you very much. And to my fellow citizens, America is back.
Amen. Amen.
Six weeks ago, I stood beneath the dome of this Capitol and proclaimed the dawn of the golden age of America. From that moment on, it has been nothing but swift and unrelenting action to usher in the greatest and most successful era in the history of our country. We have accomplished more in 43 days than most administrations accomplished in 4 years or 8 years, and we are just getting started. I return to this chamber tonight to report that America's momentum is back, our spirit is back, our pride is back, our confidence is back, and the American dream is surging bigger and better than ever before. The American dream is unstoppable, and our country is on the verge of a comeback, the likes of which the world has never witnessed and perhaps will never witness again. There's never been anything like it. The presidential election of November 5th was a mandate like has not been seen in many decades. We won all 7 swing states, giving us an electoral college victory of 312 votes.
That's what you call a landslide, folks. A landslide.
We won the popular vote by big numbers and won counties in our country.
Unbelievable. You have Democrats booing the president. Again, get him out of office. USA, USA.
And won counties in our country, 2,700 to 525, on a map that reads almost completely red for Republican.
Remove anyone who's booing.
Now, for the first time in modern history, more Americans believe that our country is headed in the right direction than the wrong direction. In fact, it's an astonishing record, 27-point swing, the most ever.
Speaker Johnson wants to say something, get these people out of it. Disgusting, the disgrace that they give to our president.
Likewise,
disgusting.
Small business optimism saw its single largest one-month gain ever recorded, a 41-point jump.
Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House and to cease any further disruptions. That's your warning. Members are engaging in willful and continuing breach of decorum, and the chair is prepared to direct the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order to the joint session.
That's right. Get him out. Al Green, get him out. J.D. Vance said to get him out. President Trump said to get him out. Anybody that disrespects our president, get them out of the chamber and get them out now. Thank you, Speaker Johnson, for doing your job. Disgusting behavior from these Democrats. These Democrats need to be removed
Mr. Green, take
from
your
office.
seat.
I've never seen
Take your
such
seat, sir.
disrespect.
Take your seat. Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order Remove this
That's
gentleman
right.
from the chamber.
Someone, how much money did they pay Alexavnda to do that? He got totally paid. It was a George Soros payment. George Soros payment. George Soros paid that guy. Socialist money. Those are lobbyists too that control Washington. Remove him. Get him out. Put him in jail. George Soros paid that guy to do that.
Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House. Mr. President, you continue.
Shouldn't have even showed up.
Over the past 6 weeks, I have signed nearly 100 executive orders and taken more than 400 executive actions, a record to restore common sense, safety, optimism, and wealth all across our wonderful land. The people elected me to do the job, and I'm doing it. In fact, it has been stated by many that the first month of our presidency, it's our presidency, is the most successful in the history of our nation. By many.
That's correct, amen.
And what makes it even more impressive is that, do you know who number 2 is? George Washington. How about that? How about that? I don't know about that list, but we'll take it. Within hours of taking the oath of office, I declared a national emergency on our southern border, and I deployed the U.S. military and Border Patrol to repel the invasion of our country. And what a job they've done. As a result, illegal border crossings last month were by far the lowest ever recorded, ever.
Thank you, Border Czar Thomas Homan. Thank you, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem and President Trump's administration for cracking down on the illegal criminals that are in this country.
And they
Get them all out.
chose not to come. Much easier that way. In comparison, under Joe Biden, the worst president in American history, there were hundreds of thousands of illegal crossings a month, and virtually all of them, including murderers, drug dealers, gang members, and people from mental institutions and insane asylums, were released into our country. Who would want to do that? This is my 5th such speech to Congress. And once again, I look at the Democrats in front of me, and I realize there is absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy or to make them stand or smile or applaud. Nothing I can do. I could find a cure to the most devastating disease, a disease that would wipe out entire nations, or announce the answers to the greatest economy in history, or the stoppage of crime to the lowest levels ever recorded. And these people sitting right here will not clap, will not stand, and certainly will not cheer for these astronomical achievements. They won't do it, no matter what. Five times I've been up here. It's very sad, and it just shouldn't be this way.
Get them out. President Trump is telling you, get these Democrats out of office. Let's put America First people in, MAGA people in, people that support him and his agenda. A moderate Democrat, somebody that I would say a moderate. There are a lot of moderate Democrats that are better than rhinos.
For just this
but
one
none of these
night,
Democrats
why not
in
join
Congress
us in celebrating so many incredible wins for America? For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
That's right. Oh, Nancy Pelosi picking her nose. Caught her picking her nose. Wiping her mouth, picking her nose. She's a nose picker, everybody. Nose picker, Pelosi. She should be home.
Every
not
day
beat
my
it.
administration is fighting to deliver the change America needs to bring a future that America deserves, and we're doing it. This is a time for big dreams and bold action. Upon taking office, I imposed an immediate freeze on all federal hiring, a freeze on all new federal regulations, and a freeze on all foreign aid.
Amen. Amen.
I terminated the ridiculous Green New Scam. I withdrew from the unfair Paris Climate Accord, which was costing us trillions of dollars that other countries were not paying. I withdrew from the corrupt World Health Organization. And I also withdrew from the anti-American UN Human Rights Council. We ended all of Biden's environmental restrictions that were making our country far less safe and totally unaffordable. And importantly, we ended the last administration's insane electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto workers and companies from economic destruction.
Amen. Everything he's saying is true,
To
folks.
unshackle
Everything he's saying is
our
true.
economy, I have directed that for every one new regulation, 10 old regulations must be eliminated, just like I did in my very successful first day.
No more screwing with America. No more screwing with us.
And in that first term, we set records on ending unnecessary rules and regulations like no other president had done before. We ordered all federal workers to return to the office. They will either show up for work in person or be removed from their job. And we have ended weaponized government where, as an example, a sitting president is allowed to viciously prosecute his political opponent, like me. How did that work out? Not too good. Not too good.
That's right. Too big to rig. President Trump won despite all the corruption against him. And we all know that the 2020 election was stolen from him.
And I have stopped
We all know
all
it.
government censorship and brought back free speech in America. It's back.
That's our First Amendment rights, everybody. You can thank Elon Musk for that as well. Elon Musk is all about freedom of speech. They hate censorship.
And 2 days ago, I signed an order making English the official language of the United States of America.
I think we're all happy about that. A lot of people didn't know that we didn't have an official language. Now English is the official language
I
of
renamed
America.
the
That's how it
Gulf
should
of
be.
Mexico the Gulf of America.
Let me tell you something. I'm so happy to be living in the Gulf of America. So happy.
And likewise, I renamed, for a great president, William McKinley, Mount McKinley again.
I love it. My father talks about that for years.
Beautiful
But he's
Alaska.
saying Mount McKinley.
Love Alaska.
Thank God.
We've ended the tyranny of so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion policies all across the entire federal government and indeed the private sector and our military.
We talked about that on our show with elected officials and
And
Fazenbaker.
our
No
country
more
will
DEI
be
hires.
woke no
Enough.
longer.
Woke no longer, he said. Woke no longer.
We believe that whether you are a doctor, an accountant, a lawyer, or an air traffic controller, you should be hired and promoted based on skill and competence, not race or gender. Very important. You should be hired based on merit. And the Supreme Court, in a brave and very powerful decision, has allowed us to do so. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. We have removed the poison of critical race theory from our public schools, and I signed an order making it the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. I also signed an executive order to ban men from playing in women's sports. Three years ago, Peyton McNabb was an all-star high school athlete, one of the best, preparing for a future in college sports. But when her girls' volleyball match was invaded by a male, he smashed the ball so hard in Peyton's face, causing traumatic brain injury, partially paralyzing her right side and ending her athletic career. It was a shot like she's never seen before. She's never seen anything like it. Peyton is here tonight in the gallery, and Peyton, from now on, schools will kick the men off the girls' team, or they will lose all federal funding. And if you really want to see numbers, just take a look at what happened in the women's boxing, weightlifting, track and field, swimming, or cycling, where a male recently finished a long-distance race 5 hours and 14 minutes ahead of a woman for a new record by 5 hours. Broke the record by 5 hours. It's demeaning for women, and it's very bad for our country. We're not going to put up with it any longer. What I have just described is only a small fraction of the common sense revolution that is now, because of us, sweeping the entire world. Common sense has become a common theme, and we will never go back. Never. Never going to let that happen. Among my very highest priorities is to rescue our economy and get dramatic and immediate relief to working families. As you know, we inherited from the last administration an economic catastrophe and an inflation nightmare. Their policies drove up energy prices, pushed up grocery costs, and drove the necessities of life out of reach for millions and millions of Americans. They've never had anything like it. We suffered the worst inflation in 48 years, but perhaps even in the history of our country. They're not sure. As president, I'm fighting every day to reverse this damage and make America affordable again. Joe Biden especially let the price of eggs get out of control. The egg price is out of control, and we're working hard to get it back down. Secretary, do a good job on that. You inherited a total mess from the previous administration. Do a good job. A major focus of our fight to defeat inflation is rapidly reducing the cost of energy. The previous administration cut the number of new oil and gas leases by 95%, slowed pipeline construction to a halt, and closed more than 100 power plants. We are opening up many of those power plants right now. And frankly, we have never seen anything like it. That's why on my first day in office, I declared a national energy emergency. As you've heard me say many times, we have more liquid gold under our feet than any nation on earth, and by far. And now I fully authorize the most talented team ever assembled to go and get it. It's called Drill, Baby, Drill. My administration is also working on a gigantic natural gas pipeline in Alaska, among the largest in the world, where Japan, South Korea, and other nations want to be our partner with investments of trillions of dollars each. There's never been anything like that one. It will be truly spectacular. It's all set to go. The permitting is gotten. And later this week, I will also take historic action to dramatically expand production of critical minerals and rare earths here in the USA. To further combat inflation, we will not only be reducing the cost of energy, but will be ending the flagrant waste of taxpayer dollars. And to that end, I have created the brand new Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. Perhaps you've heard of it. Perhaps. Which is headed by Elon Musk, who is in the gallery tonight. Thank you, Elon. He's working very hard. He didn't need this. He didn't need this. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Everybody here, even this side, appreciates it, I believe. They just don't want to admit that. Just listen to some of the appalling waste we have already identified. $22 billion from HHS to provide free housing and cars for illegal aliens. $45 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Burma. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is. $8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million. $8 million for making mice transgender. This is real. $32 million for a left-wing propaganda operation in Moldova. $10 million for male circumcision in Mozambique. $20 million for the Arab Sesame Street in the Middle East. It's a program. $20 million for a program. $1.9 billion to recently created Decarbonization of Homes Committee, headed up, and we know she's involved. Just at the last moment, the money was passed over by a woman named Stacey Abrams. Have you ever heard of her? A $3.5 million consulting contract for lavish fish monitoring. $1.5 million for voter confidence in Liberia, $14 million for social cohesion in Mali, $59 million for illegal alien hotel rooms in New York City. He's a real estate developer. He's done very well. $250,000 to increase vegan local climate action innovation in Zambia. $42 million for social and behavior change in Uganda. $14 million for improving public procurement in Serbia. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. Asia's doing very well with learning. You know what we're doing. Should use it ourselves. And $101 million for DEI contracts at the Department of Education. The most ever paid, nothing even like it. Under the Trump administration, all of these scams, and they're far worse, but I didn't think it was appropriate to talk about them. They're so bad. Many more have been found out and exposed and swiftly terminated by a group of very intelligent, mostly young people, headed up by Elon, and we appreciate it. We found hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud. And we've taken back the money and reduced our debt to fight inflation and other things. Taken back a lot of that money. We got it just in time. This is just the beginning. The Government Accountability Office, a federal government office, has estimated annual fraud of over $500 billion in our nation, and we are working very hard to stop it. We're going to. We're also identifying shocking levels of incompetence and probable fraud in the Social Security program for our seniors, and that our seniors and people that we love rely on. Believe it or not, government databases list 4.7 million Social Security members from people aged 100 to 109 years old. It lists 3.6 million people from ages 110 to 119. I don't know any of them. I know some people that are rather elderly, but not quite that elderly. 3.47 million people from ages 120 to 129. 3.9 million people from ages 130 to 139. 3.5 million people from ages 140 to 149. And money is being paid to many of them. And we're searching right now. In fact, Pam, good luck. Good luck. You're going to find it. But a lot of money is paid out to people because it just keeps getting paid, and nobody does. And it really hurts Social Security and hurts our country. 1.3 million people from ages 150 to 159, and over 130,000 people, according to the Social Security databases, are age over 160 years old. We have a healthier country than I thought, Bobby.
Why are the Democrats doing this? This is real stuff that Doge found out. Verified. People that are golden collecting Social Security? No.
Including, to finish, 1,039 people between the ages of 220 and 229. One person between the age of 240 and 249, and one person is listed at 360 years of age. More than 100 years, more than 100 years older than our country. But we're going to find out where that money's going, and it's not going to be pretty. By slashing all of the fraud, waste, and theft we can find, we will defeat inflation, bring down mortgage rates, lower car payments, and grocery prices, protect our seniors, and put more money in the pockets of American families. And today, interest rates took a beautiful drop, big, beautiful drop. It's about time. And in the near future, I want to do what has not been done in 24 years, balance the federal budget. We're going to balance it.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. That's right, everybody. It's important. Balance the Federal Reserve.
With that goal in mind, we have developed in great detail what we are calling the Gold Card, which goes on sale very, very soon. For $5 million, we will allow the most successful job-creating people from all over the world to buy a path to U.S. citizenship. It's like the green card, but better and more sophisticated. And these people will have to pay tax in our country. They won't have to pay tax from where they came. The money that they've made, you wouldn't want to do that, but they have to pay tax, create jobs. They'll also be taking people out of colleges and paying for them so that we can keep them in our country instead of having them being forced out. Number one, at the top school, as an example, being forced out and not being allowed to stay and create tremendous numbers of jobs and great success for a company out there. So while we take out the criminals, killers, traffickers, and child predators who are allowed to enter our country under the open border policy of these people, the Democrats, the Biden administration, the open border insane policies that you've allowed to destroy our country, we will now bring in brilliant, hardworking, job-creating people. They're going to pay a lot of money, and we're going to reduce our debt with that money. Americans have given us a mandate for bold and profound change. For nearly 100 years, the federal bureaucracy has grown until it has crushed our freedoms, ballooned our deficits, and held back America's potential in every possible way. The nation founded by pioneers and risk-takers now drowns under millions and millions of pages of regulations and debt. Approvals that should take 10 days to get instead take 10 years, 15 years, and even 20 years before you're rejected. Meanwhile, we have hundreds of thousands of federal workers who have not been showing up to work. My administration will reclaim power from this unaccountable bureaucracy, and we will restore true democracy to America again. And any federal bureaucrat who resists this change will be removed from office immediately. Because we are draining the swamp. It's very simple. And the days of rule by unelected bureaucrats are over. And the next phase of our plan to deliver the greatest economy in history is for this Congress to pass tax cuts for everybody. They're in there. They're waiting for you to vote. And I'm sure that the people on my right, I don't mean the Republican right, but my right here, I'm sure you're going to vote for those tax cuts, because otherwise I don't believe the people will ever vote you into office. So I'm doing you a big favor by telling you that. But I know this group is going to be voting for the tax. Thank you. It's a very, very big part of our plan. We had tremendous success in our first term with it. A very big part of our plan. We're seeking permanent income tax cuts all across the board. And to get urgently needed relief to Americans hit especially hard by inflation, I'm calling for no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security benefits for our great seniors. And I also want to make interest payments on car loans tax deductible, but only if the car is made in America. And by the way, we're going to have growth in the auto industry like nobody's ever seen. Plants are opening up all over the place. Deals are being made. Never seen. That's a combination of the election win and tariffs. It's a beautiful word, isn't it? That, along with our other policies, will allow our auto industry to absolutely boom. It's going to boom. Spoke to the majors today, all three, the top people, and they're so excited. In fact, already numerous car companies have announced that they will be building massive automobile plants in America, with Honda just announcing a new plant in Indiana, one of the largest anywhere in the world. And this has taken place since our great victory on November 5th, a date which will hopefully go down as one of the most important in the history of our country. In addition, as part of our tax cuts, we want to cut taxes on domestic production and all manufacturing. And just as we did before, we will provide 100% expensing. It will be retroactive to January 20th, 2025. And it was one of the main reasons why our tax cuts were so successful in our first term, giving us the most successful economy in the history of our country. First term. We had a great first term. If you don't make your product in America, however, under the Trump administration, you will pay a tariff, and in some cases, a rather large one. Other countries have used tariffs against us for decades, and now it's our turn to start using them against those other countries. On average, the European Union, China, Brazil, India, Mexico, and Canada, have you heard of them? And countless other nations charge us tremendously higher tariffs than we charge them. It's very unfair. India charges us auto tariffs higher than 100%. China's average tariff on our products is twice what we charge them. And South Korea's average tariff is 4 times higher. Think of that, 4 times higher. And we give so much help militarily and in so many other ways to South Korea, but that's what happens. This is happening by friend and foe. This system is not fair to the United States and never was, and so on April 2nd, I wanted to make it April 1st, but I didn't want to be accused of April Fool's Day. That's not, just one day cost us a lot of money. But we're going to do it in April. I'm a very superstitious person. April 2nd, reciprocal tariffs kick in. And whatever they tariff us, other countries, we will tariff them. That's reciprocal, back and forth. Whatever they tax us, we will tax them. If they do non-monetary tariffs to keep us out of their market, then we will do non-monetary barriers to keep them out of our market. There's a lot of that, too. They don't even allow us in their market. We will take in trillions and trillions of dollars and create jobs like we have never seen before. I did it with China, and I did it with others, and the Biden administration couldn't do anything about it because there was so much money they couldn't do anything about it. We have been ripped off for decades by nearly every